There you are, playing the PvP in your World War II shooter, and all of a sudden, you're a Nazi.
God forbid there's Nazis in a World War II shooter that you voluntarily decided to play.
You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. Yet there it is.
You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. As you're playing the PvP in a World War II shooter?
And it's treated no differently than playing a British soldier.
I mean, it is treated kind of differently. Sometimes the guns are different.
This is bad on so many levels. No one should ever have a random chance of fighting for the Nazis.
Okay, so don't play World War II games.
And we should never express that there's no meaningful difference between Nazis and Allied soldiers, or that they're functionally interchangeable.
Nobody says that. Literally nobody says that, except you. Functionally, yeah, sure, you can make the argument that the Allies and the Axis will be functionally interchangeable because they have to be, because it's a video game, but nobody is saying they're interchangeable in any other way. And to say that because we can play, or at some points we have to play as Nazis in a World War II multiplayer game that we voluntarily bought, saying that's somehow equivalent to doing the same thing to the actual Nazi ideology, I'm gonna have to put that at the top of my list of the biggest reaches I've ever heard.
And before anyone equivocates and says not all German soldiers in World War II were Nazis,
They weren't.
if they were wearing the swastika and are functioning as an arm of the Nazi government, then unless the game goes out of its way to tell you specifically that your particular character is not a Nazi, then they're a Nazi.
No. Actually, no. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm actually about to explain this. Not all German soldiers during World War II were Nazis. The same way that not all American soldiers are these crazy, strong, patriotic, and, far right-leaning individuals. Not all German soldiers were Nazis. A lot of them were just scared kids forced into the military. Yes, Nazism is evil. I fucking hate it. And anyone who has a brain should also hate Nazism, actual Nazism. But no, not all German soldiers were Nazis.
In that multiplayer shooter, when it switched you to the German side, did it go out of its way to tell you that the person you're playing was pressed into service under threat of their life?
Oh, look, there's an actual situation that happens literally the sentence after you said it didn't happen. Also, that's an American soldier with an M1 Garand. So.
Yeah, that's a big old nope. Oh, and on a similar note, let's please stop forcing people to play as terrorists as well.
Oh, sure, yeah, no, we'll just have no more military games at all. We'll only make up imaginary factions. We can only play Overwatch now, guys. Is this the world you want, extra credits? You only want us to play Overwatch? I'd rather kill myself.
There you are, playing your modern shooter, and all of a sudden you're a terrorist. You didn't ask for this, you didn't choose this, and yet second verse, same as the first. There it is.
You did ask for this. You bought the game and you sat down with the game. If you buy a modern military game, there's going to be terrorism. If you buy a World War II game, there's going to be Nazis. Grow up. If you don't like these things, and you have every right to not like these things, you don't have to play them. How do you feel about Halo playing as the elites in the Covenant? The Covenant were a genocidal alien race trying to wipe out the entire galaxy in the name of a religion. Can we not play as those now? Or how about Gears of War? We can't play as the Locust anymore because they're also a genocidal group trying to wipe out humanity? Are we only allowed to play these storyless, homogenous hero shooters where there's no real-world conflict in any possible interpretable way? How boring would that be? What you're asking right now is to get rid of historical fiction. To which I say, grow up.
I mean, that's literally the name of your side in the game.
Yeah, and Counter-Strike's been around for almost 20 years now. You're the first person ever to complain about it.
We can do better than this. No one should have to put on the costume of an ideology they find abhorrent without actually opting into it in your game.
You do opt into it by buying the game. Do you want us to have World War II games with no Nazis? Is that what you're asking? Because that's what it sounds like. And that's stupid.
And by making people do so, we get them to stop thinking about it, to stop thinking of the meaning behind these things. We normalize them. We make them just window dressing for entertainment. Those uniforms, those symbols, become things that no longer inherently revolt us.
Wait. The Iron Cross is not a Nazi symbol. I hope you know this.
They reduce our visceral reaction to seeing the embodiment of these ideologies.
Well, I mean, first of all, I would argue that's not what's happening. But second of all, I would argue that that isn't even a bad outcome. If you're someone who's just repulsed by just the image of a swastika, or you just want to scream and yell because someone said the word terrorism, yeah, I think that's a personal problem. And I think if people are moving away from that reaction, I think that's a good thing, because that means they're becoming adults.
Now, does this make us totally ignore the history that comes with them? No.
Oh, look, the first real thing that's been said all day. But also, if it doesn't make us ignore history, then why is it a bad thing?
But for some people, it moves them from the territory of revolting to just edgy. It makes scrawling a swastika on something change from unthinkable to just dangerous.
People are going to be edgy all the time. It's just human nature. Some people are going to want to get reactions out of people. And you know what you're doing right here by making a video like this is you're just going to make actions like that, spraying swastikas on things, saying offensive things. You're going to make people want to do that more because it's clear that it's working. It gets under your skin. No one was even trying to get under your skin, and yet here we are, 148,000 dislikes later.
It means you might not take iron crosses all over a website as a warning sign that you should immediately leave.
You did not just say that. You did not just... Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. You didn't just say that. Oh my God. Okay, for those of you who don't know history, the Iron Cross is not a Nazi symbol. The Iron Cross dates all the way back to the 13th century. And around the late 1800s, early 1900s is when the German army adopted it as their symbol. And I think we all know where the Nazis were congregated. Germany. So the Nazis used the Iron Cross in addition to the swastika. But what's important here is after the Nazis were defeated, the Iron Cross was used for the military once again, just as a normal military symbol. And it's still used to this day by the German army. The Iron Cross is not a Nazi symbol.
You might not take iron crosses all over a website as a warning sign that you should immediately leave. And if you don't leave, you might start reading and buying into hateful ideas there.
God forbid people read into ideas that aren't their own and try to understand them.
It seems like such a small and simple thing. But it's things like this that erode our safeguards against dangers we sacrifice so much to fight.
God, this video is so fucking boring. I'm like making an active effort to talk more than I normally do and keep the clips shorter in between my talking segments because this video is so fucking boring. I mean, you guys literally ripped your entire video format from 0 punctuation, but you're like 100 times more boring.
By the time you've played 100 hours of being a Nazi, their voice stabs become memes and in-jokes with your friends.
Yeah, people make Nazi jokes all the time. We're not laughing with Nazis, we're laughing at Nazis. People make fun of Nazis because fuck Nazis.
By the 1,000th time you've respawned as a terrorist, you're either celebrating them or making fun of them.
Okay, well obviously celebrating terrorism is pretty bad, but what's wrong with making fun of them? Making fun of something causes that thing to lose its power. Have you noticed that? Probably not. You don't strike me as a thinker.
Neither of which helps the global crisis we have that takes thousands of lives every year.
Making fun of terrorism doesn't help. Great, now the joke police are here.
Again, stupid people treat jokes about bad things with the same fear and loathing as intelligent people treat the actual bad thing. And they're not related. A joke about a bad... That's what humour's for. To get us over bad things. That's exactly what, evolutionarily speaking, a humour is. So it gets us over bad shit. If you can't joke about bad shit, there's no point joking about good shit.
Yeah, because it's already happening.
We don't need
feels
it.
good.
It's already good. Yeah.
Everyone.
So what do?
Nothing. We don't do anything. We keep going along with what we were doing. Stop inventing problems for yourself to grandstand about.
That's easy. Don't make them morally equivalent.
Okay, so don't change anything. That's easy.
Don't make there be no in-game moral difference between your Nazis and your allies.
How is this different than what's already here?
Between your terrorists and your counter-terrorist squads. Frame PvP as a training exercise. Or simply take one of your non-odious sides and recolor them so that it's red versus blue.
Oh my god. So you actually do want to do what I was making fun of earlier. You actually do want to make PvP games just a storyless, homogenous thing. God, bro, what the... Oh, fuck. How did you upload this unironically? How did you not think this was going to go the way it did? What you're saying right now is no historical fiction because I'm offended. If you're offended, I'm sorry. I mean, not really. But if you're offended, you don't have to partake in something. It's a game, not a rule. You don't have to do it. You don't have to play it. If you don't want to play World War II games, or you don't want to play games where they're terrorists, you have plenty of other options.
Rather than Axis versus Allies. A good example of a game that does this is Rainbow Six Siege. All of your bomb diffusion and hostage rescue multiplayer with no normalizing terrorists.
Rainbow Six Siege, one team is literally terrorists. What are you on about right now?
In fact, by having all of the characters as counter-terrorists, training for a possible threat, it highlights how real and present of a threat that is.
No, one team is counter-terrorists, one team is doing the terrorism. Who do you think put the bombs there? Who do you think took the hostages? Oh my god, what are you on about?
And if you decide that you need to have both sides be playable, don't make them interchangeable.
They're not.
Don't have players randomly spawn in as one or the other.
So you're suggesting if we want playable terrorists or playable Nazis in our historical video games, we have to actually choose which team to be on, in which case you would just make a video about how bad it is that people are choosing to be the side you don't like. People see right through this video, bud. It's over. You lost this one.
Allow players to choose which side they're on. Now, of course, this has all sorts of in-game problems, such as creating shorter wait times for fascists, but you know what? Those wait times could be artificially extended.
Artificial wait times for fascists. Coming from the guy who wants to just erase things he doesn't like because it hurts his feelings. Kinda fascistic.
If it meant players had an active choice in what teams they would represent, if you're saying we need people playing Nazis in our games. And if you're going to say, but we need it for historical reasons, then your game better actually be historical.
Oh my god, there's so much wrong with this. First of all, fuck you for saying the Iron Cross is a Nazi sign and then getting on people's case for something not being historical. Yeah, you seem like a real authority on history. And second of all, oh my god, I can't even, fit my points into words right now. I can't believe this video is even uploaded. You're saying the game better be historical, but you don't want Nazis in a World War II game. How are you presenting these things in the same video unironically?
You can't really just hide behind the fact you called your desert map El Alamein and say, but it's historical. If that were the case, you need your PvP to at least represent real historical events.
Like the fact that the Allies and the Axis fought in World War II.
And be a realistic take on those battles. Once you make both sides balanced, it's also no longer historical.
So now what you're asking for is to make one team always lose. Because in order for the game to be historical, the Axis would have to lose every single match, and that's a game that nobody wants to play.
And you can't really say that you need Nazis anymore for historical accuracy.
What? You just...
Oh, and once you let players get cool weapons that weren't actually at that particular battleground, it's also no longer historically accurate.
Can you give examples? Can you actually give examples of games that did the thing you're talking about? Because earlier in this video, you showed Call of Duty World War II from the point of view of an American soldier using an American weapon, and you called him a Nazi. So forgive me for doubting your actual knowledge of video games.
And you can't declare that your game will suffer if you don't put players in the jackboots of the Third Reich.
I can tell you what does make your game suffer. Saying people were uneducated for not wanting to support a game that is blatantly trying to portray a real-world conflict in a way that it did not happen. There are going to be artistic liberties taken in any World War II game, any video game for that matter, that's based on a historical event, because you need to make the gameplay work. When you die in a video game, you're going to respawn. That's obviously not realistic. When you're playing a shooter, your guns aren't going to jam for no reason, because, and obviously that's not realistic. You have regenerating health in a lot of these games. That's not realistic. And honestly, I see the arguments of that side. I really do. I've seen a lot of people make that argument that, because these unrealistic gameplay mechanics are in the game, that means these other unrealistic historical elements don't have to be in the game either. I actually do understand that argument. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. But then again, I'm talking to you who thinks just being understanding of opposing viewpoints is somehow pushing me to be a Nazi. So,
And once your map is something carefully designed to have good gameplay by a team in a room in San Francisco or LA, and it's not a faithful reconstruction of the actual places the historical events occurred in, you can no longer say we need to have players take up arms in service of terror or hate.
So you're saying that in order for you to be okay with terrorists or Nazis being in a video game as a playable faction, it has to be 100% accurate, with no regards for whether or not the game is actually fun or good to play. Holy shit, you're an asshole.
And look, we're not saying we can't have games about World War II or about terrorism.
Yes, that actually is what you're saying. You're saying we can have those games, they just can't be fun.
We're not even saying we shouldn't make games where you play as a Nazi or a terrorist.
Okay, but that literally is what you said.
But what we are saying is that the fact that you're playing as a Nazi or a terrorist in a game has to mean something.
No, it doesn't have to mean something, because it's a game.
And it can't just be a skin. It can't be something that a game randomly drops you into.
It didn't randomly drop you into it if you bought the game knowing it was there. If you bought a World War II multiplayer game thinking there was no chance that there were going to be any Nazis anywhere, that's your fault.
And really, if we are saying anything in this episode, it's this. Games can do better. And in this particular case, it's not even that hard to do better.
Games can do better. Yeah, there's a lot of things that games can be doing better right now. Better business practices, better optimization for console games, better crossplay support for a lot of multiplayer games. Like, really, why isn't crossplay the standard at this point? Come on. But you know what I'm not concerned about? Is having to possibly play as a Nazi in a multiplayer game set in World War II that I knowingly purchased. Or having to play as a terrorist group in a military game that I knowingly purchased. If you don't want to play as these factions, or you don't want to take part in this kind of multiplayer game, you have other options. You yourself brought up Siege, even though that was fucking stupid the way you brought it up. That's an option. Overwatch is an option. Halo is an option. Gears of War is an option. But then by your own logic there, we can't play those games either. Because in those universes, they're terrorisms or they're fascist regimes. So what are you proposing? You actually are saying that we can't have any PvP games with any kind of lore. The only PvP games we can have are the ones with absolutely no lore and no story. So there's no possible hint of any evil organization behind the scenes on either side. You're not explicitly saying this, but this is the message you're trying to say. In which case I go back to what I said before about you being an asshole and you need to grow up.
And it's no more costly to do better. All it requires is that we in the game industry be cognizant of the world around us.
Cognizant of the world around us.
And what these symbols we're drawing on mean. That we think as we're building, not just about the game we're working on, but about the world as a whole.
Yeah. Then there's the moral grandstanding. Let's go to the comment section. After the massive backlash, they posted a little update where they just decided to clarify a few things that they apparently didn't say. Number 1, we never said that playing as a Nazi turns you into a Nazi. That's not how it works. Yeah, you didn't say playing as a Nazi turns you into a Nazi, but you did say playing as a Nazi could make you more open to their ideas and understanding their ideas. That is what you said. Do you want me to play the clip again? I will.
It means you might not take iron crosses all over a website as a warning sign that you should immediately leave. And if you don't leave, you might start reading and buying into hateful ideas there.
We never said that games should never let you play as Nazis or terrorists for that matter. Yeah, no, you just said that if they are going to do that, they just can't be fun. For those saying it's just a game and we shouldn't think too hard about it, I feel like perhaps it might be important to introduce ourselves. Hi, we're Extra Credits. Our tagline for a very long time was because games matter. It's something we fundamentally believe, and if you don't, that's okay. Yeah, it's okay if you believe things we don't. You just can't have fun video games. Our writing staff is the same, and we've always talked about politics and games in our other videos, and those are usually your worst videos. If this comes as a surprise to you, or you think there's been a large shift in our thinking, there has, I'd invite you to take a look at some of our older episodes. Yes, watch the older ones. The channel used to be better. We live in a time where neo-Nazis exist, and they've seemed to have increasingly found a home in gaming communities. All right, CNN. This isn't something we can turn a blind eye anymore. That's a terrible sentence. And it's important to consider what we as game designers can do to try and make things better. Oh, you're a game designer now. I didn't know that. Well, I'm kind of glad that I don't play your games because according to you, we just can't have fun games if we have any real world ideologies in it. I would give this video like 7-8 more days before it's taken down. There's no way they keep this video up. Having fiction based off real things is important. It's very important. And to an extent, I believe normalizing things is a good thing. Because like I said, if you're someone who is just so scared and gets so angry just at the mention or the sight of anything having to do with Nazis or terrorists, that's a personal problem. You need to work on that. I've learned so much about World War II. I've become so interested in, current world events and the past world events from video games, from historical video games, and from video games based on modern events. I've become so interested in politics and things because these things were shown to me in a way that no other outlet really would have. And I think that's important. If you don't want to take part in these games, you don't have to. They're not for you. No game is made for everyone, except Portal. Portal's great. Go play Portal. Just all of the weird hoops that you jump through here, your intentions are clear. I mean, with the whole Iron Cross thing and the whole you can't understand other viewpoints, and if you're going to have historical games, they have to be completely 100% accurate, which would not be fun. We know what you're saying. Stop normalizing Nazis. How about stop normalizing the silencing of things you don't like? How about that? That's a disturbing trend I've been seeing pop up the last year or so. I don't like this thing. The people who do like it are Nazis. They're neo-Nazis. Shut it down. Instead of maybe saying, I don't like this, I'm going to walk away now because I'm an adult. So how about you chew on that? Extra credits if you ever watch this. You probably won't. But thank you guys for watching this, because you actually did watch this. Or maybe you didn't, and YouTube didn't push this video because it's about things that they probably don't agree with. Oh well, I'm going to keep making videos now. Toodles.